It'd be nice to kind of just hear about a little bit about how you kind of got started in sound design.
I started in work experience. So I'm from Sunderland up north. So I got very lucky. I had some contacts down here. Went like VFX houses, went in old film labs, went to edit houses, and then I finally got a placement in a sound studio. Just liked the process of what they were doing. I had an interest from sound. I used to mess around with it on my old Atari ST, doing little animations and stuff like that years and years ago. And yeah, it just seemed really creative. And after that, they kind of offered me a job as a runner. So I was a runner for couple of years and then kind of moved into Foley fitting, moved from there into like a video transfer bay, and then slowly moved through, like I did animation to documentaries, started to do drama, and then kind of from there carried on doing drama and some films now and again, and getting into some games and stuff like that.
Did you find that you get different kind of skill sets and things from different media that you work in?
Yeah, definitely. Like Foley, I think really helped me just learning the kit because the turnaround's quite quick. So, it's very similar to sound effects editing but all the sound effects are there for you. You've just got to kind of manipulate them and get them into sync. So learning sync from Fit and Foley was amazing because you kind of, have got 2 days to fit an hour or, 3 days if you're lucky, then you've got to kind of work at that pace, and you get all the shortcuts and all the little tricks that you need.
Out of all the projects that you've kind of worked on, like, has there been one that was like particularly standout where you just got to have like a lot of fun with it or anything like that?
There was a Channel 4 show called Misfits. I've been a massive comic book fan for as long as I've known, and it was all about superheroes, and so I had to design all the different powers for the main cast, and then each week they'd have a different kind of baddie would come along, and you get a chance to mess around with that. It was just great fun, and all the kind of production crew and the directors were really allowed me just to mess around and basically come up with these weird powers that no one knows the sound of someone turning invisible or turning back time and stuff like that. So it was really a good chance to get creative. That was my kind of first breakout into real sound design stuff rather than just kind of effects track laying and such. Funny enough, I've still got all the backups and I've still got the videos, and I really want to go back and redesign stuff because a lot of the stuff that I was doing was very basic, like compared to what we can do now. I started off working on an audio file and kind of transitioned across to Pro Tools, but a lot of it was just reverse, reverb, pitch shift. That was basically all I was using at that point. So yeah, it will at some point when I get the time, I want to kind of go back and redesign episode 1, just to see what I can do now. But yeah.
How did the plugins kind of come onto your radar? How did you start using them in your work?
There was a show called Beowulf that I did for ITV, and there was lots of creature stuff in there, and I found the original, I think it was called OB Dehumanizer at the time, just to help with the creature stuff on that. It was really handy. We had loads of trolls and stuff like that, so I was kind of manipulating my own voice to do it. Dehumanizer came out, and Dehumanizer 2, so I kind of got into that, and then I started finding them very useful. Reformer is like my favorite one, I must admit. That's awesome, just being able to add layers to things really quickly, like footsteps, or I kind of use it almost like I use Dehumanizer. A lot of people just seem to think it's a Foley tool, but I've used it. Like on Truth Seekers, there's these wraith creatures that appear, and I was messing around with bird sounds and manipulating those, and came up with this weird screech sound using Reformer. So it's like a multi-purpose tool, that one. It's such a great plugin, and just really quick and really easy to use, and anything you can basically mess around with your voice. It's awesome.
It really does kind of work with the input you put into the plugin, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is. You can just get loads of different variations. Like if I've got creature stuff, I'll throw in a load of different creature sounds, tigers and walruses and all sorts of things, and you play around with it, and sometimes we rubbish, sometimes it'll be really great, but those really great things are really useful. The presets that are in Krotos, all the Krotos products are really good. They're a really good starting point. There's a lot of variables that you can mess around with, and having something that's kind of been set already, and then you can see what they're actually doing, and then you work from there, and then you basically manipulate them yourself, and then once you get more of an understanding, then you can just start with a blank slate and go from there. But having all those presets in there is awesome.
SAS is like an interesting one. It just sounds like a complete dream project, to be fair.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was absolutely, I loved working on it. we had 3 weeks per episode. Episode 3 in particular, 60% of them died jumping out of a plane, dragged through a desert. They're being shot at while this is going on by anti-aircraft guns. They had sold 4 different air bases with explosions, shootouts, Messerschmitts being blown up. It was basically just like a feature film in itself. Yeah, we had 3 weeks to do it all. So having something like Weaponizer to help me out on the guns so that I didn't have to, lay up every single gun element, I still had what I would do is I'd get the visual effects and time the muzzle flashes and then time those in Weaponizer so that I get the right fire rate. Yeah, that would just save me so much time. We were lucky enough to have some recordings and get some recordings of the guns. The SAS guys then had Thompson machine guns. So I've got all the kind of different samples and different distances and things that we needed and put those into Weaponizer. But also added some more elements into it because the guns, as great as they sound, we need them close and heavy and big and, make them punchy. So yeah, Weaponizer was amazing for that. And, when you've got these rapid fire guns, the great thing of Weaponizer is you can change some of the elements. So you can switch it to round robins, different elements. So they don't just sound like a repeat all the time. Putting a bit of metal in there, probably hitting a little bit of sub kick in there as well, just to kind of beef them up.
When you're working on those kinds of projects, do you how do you strike the balance between those two things, like the really kind of the realistic stuff and then the more exciting things? Like, do you find you can get carried away with one or the other, or is kind of strike that balance?
Totally. I mean, I designed. There's a bit where the kind of title cards pop up for the different characters' names, and I went absolutely mental, like thinking about what their characters were and what they did and how their personalities were, and I designed all these crazy sounds that would kind of match their characteristics. And yeah, we got into the mix and it was like, no, we need to tone this back a little bit, so we just kind of went for a simple whoosh in the end. But Tom basically said to us at the beginning of the program is like, more is more. So they were very much up for going for these big sequences.
You also kind of supervise, like when you're like a supervising sound editor, and in those circumstances when you're kind of collaborating and you're working with teams, how do you approach making sure that everyone on the team has kind of like a unified idea of how the project should sound, or those kinds of things? Like, how do you kind of navigate that space?
What I tend to do, I'm very much a kind of hands-on person when it comes to that. So what will tend to happen is I'll kind of do the first episode and kind of set it up, and then we'll have a chat about how we want everything to sound. Some people won't look at what someone else has done, and you end up with the wrong telephone for an office, so you got to kind of keep them consistency. And then it's just working with the other track layers and making sure that they understand the brief and go for it. And I'll play through their work, and sometimes we'll tone back, sometimes I'll add elements in, but it's just making sure that everyone feels a part of it. So on SAS, for instance, it was myself and Lewis, and we've worked together on a lot of different shows. I'll do episode 1, he'll do episode 2, I'll do 3, he'll do 4. It's just keeping that consistency and keeping everyone involved. Everyone brings their own ideas. It's really good to kind of absorb them and bring them on board.
You've worked on a bunch of projects now. Are there ones that kind of stand out more than others?
Patrick Melrose was a really, really good show that I did, just because it was set over quite a long time scale, and it was just a really kind of powerful drama about someone dealing with drug addiction, and there was lots of really cool sound design moments. Being in New York one moment and being in France the next moment. Edward was, when he was directing, was really passionate and really wanted us to play with the sounds and kind of heighten stuff a lot. There was a show called Critical that I did, and that was basically kind of like 24 for a A&E department. Each episode was set in an hour, and it was all in real time, and that was really cool. It was very challenging from a sound point of view, because it was just full on action all the time. I recently did 38 cutscenes for Total War Warhammer, which was, I started that during lockdowns. So I was in a garage, had to track like 36 of these programs, these cutscenes, on headphones. Being a massive Warhammer fan since I was a kid, I used to paint all the figures, and it was like my dream kind of project, just kind of creating all these different magic spells, and that was a lot of fun. Video games is very different kind of process. They wanted to keep a lot of the spells and stuff that they use from the game in the cutscenes themselves, so I got to listen to a lot of their work, which is awesome. Funny enough, I did something called Extraordinary for Disney quite recently about a world where everyone has superpowers apart from one girl. That was cool, but again, it was they kind of wanted to set everything real so that the superpowers didn't sound super. It was kind of, that was the norm, and for someone not to have superpower, she was the unusual one, so that all the superpowers, again, it was using natural recordings and natural elements. Everything kind of had to be bedded in realism, even though, because that is the realism
That's the norm,
of the town. Yeah, so that was really fun to do.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because it kind of flips that whole idea of the fantasy on its head, doesn't it? And like, that'd be like a really interesting challenge to undertake as a sound designer.